Senator.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I suppose the quote I got first thing this morning was, here's to strong women, may we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. And I'd add to that, and here's to the men who support us, who respect us, who work with us and who are great colleagues. And I count you very much amongst that, Minister, as being a really good colleague. And from the moment you stepped into your job, you have done nothing but advance the cause of equality, not just for women, but across our whole society. So well done on that. I think I'm departing from the theme of the day, but I suppose I possibly say this every year, but as a very young girl, I was brought to Mass on a Sunday, the very first Mass in a new church, and the priest got up and announced that he wanted men to volunteer for doing the readings and would women volunteer for doing the cleaning of the church. And my mother's first outing in feminism was, and an instruction to me in feminism was that she challenged him at the end of the Mass of who did you think he was, and the cheek of him, for presuming that women weren't capable of doing the readings and that men weren't capable of cleaning the church. So I suppose I got an indoctrination at a very young age to stand your ground and call it out when you see it. And so I suppose my first thanks, and I'm going to do a couple of thanks as you hear this morning, my first thanks is to my own mother for the great model that she has always been to me in standing your ground and standing up for who you are and having a value on women. Beyond any of the stereotypes that are cast at them. And so I want to spend my time this morning just thanking a few particular women who have been extraordinary, and to do what they do causes an awful lot of stress, and I hope that we're all on a trajectory of alleviating that stress. And the first woman I want to support and to really thank is a woman called Cathy Egan, who with her husband Brian are facing him being very, very ill, and the possibility of him being terminally ill, and that she has stood out and stood up for the right of her to be known as the mother of her second child, the child that she didn't give birth to, the child that she has via surrogacy. She endures, she has tended court, she has cared and loved her family and been an incredible colleague in the whole surrogacy advocacy. And I just want to say thank you to Cathy this morning. I think she lives through a lot of stress and a lot of worry, and hopefully, even as early as this morning, I spoke with the Minister for Health, his office, and I'm very hopeful that we'll have good news in the next few weeks. So she stands for what is right, and she perseveres even when it's hard. I also want to call out three women that I work with locally, one of them being MJ and Helen from the Dublin 12 Autism Group, and Miriam Kenny from Involve Autism, who are tireless campaigners on behalf of their children and on behalf of all children as a consequence. And we see great moves forward. We've seen it with Minister Anne Rabbitte now. I'm delighted it's fully in under your department, but also with Minister Josepha Madigan, and that we will see great steps forward for the parents and the mothers in Dublin 12 who in CHO7 have very little to no services. It is very, very difficult, and yet they persevere. They see a diminution, yet they persevere in their voices, and sometimes their constant advocacy is the reminder that they are here and they are the voice of their children. So I want to commend them for their huge amount of work. As is, I suppose, when you're out in communities in the constituency of Dublin South Central, it brings you in touch with mothers in communities like Cherry Orchard and Ballyfermot, who are fantastic advocates for their children also, who stand up against a very tiny, tiny element that with criminal intent, and who would be happy to groom their children into criminality. And those mothers stand in the way of that. Those mothers work several jobs to ensure that they have the jackets, the shoes, the boots, the whatever, the everything that their children need, so that they won't be induced and seduced into crime. And they are extraordinary, and I'm not going to name them because a lot of them like to remain anonymous, but there are extraordinary mothers in our communities doing extraordinary work all the time. And I suppose that brings me on to a woman called Alicia and her daughter Lada. And I met Alicia on Monday. I'm godparent to her husband, Kim, who is a political prisoner in Belarus. And Joe O'Reilly is godfather to his brother. Both brothers were living very normal lives, but happened to go out and protest, as we are free to do here, thankfully, in Belarus, and they have been sentenced to extraordinary terms, in prison. So Alicia is Ukrainian, married to a Belarusian with a Belarusian child, and the Slada. So they had to flee Belarus because of the intimidation and fear for their own family. They then had to flee Ukraine, and we got great assistance ensuring that they came to Ireland and live now in Cork. But she advocates, every time she speaks for her husband, every time she stands outside the Russian embassy protesting on behalf of the Ukrainian situation and with the women here, she runs the risk of his family being targeted in Belarus. So we need to remember them. And they brought to mind that we have there are 191 women political prisoners in Belarus for no other reason other than they hold politically diverse views in opposition to a very authoritarian regime. And I just want to remember them today. I think it's really important. I'm very glad that you began by noting the Ukrainian women. We have an incredible privilege, and we do go to bat often here on different sides of the House over different issues, but we're entitled to express them and do so freely. There are countries where that isn't the case, and I want to remember the great work of Alicia but also the women who are political prisoners in Belarus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. And next